The Chris Evans Breakfast Show with Sky.
Congratulations on this amazing film. When did you choose Diego Maradona?
I'm a big football fan, and so I suppose Diego, I was aware of him much more before even making Senna and Amy. So the project kind of started when I was a student. I remember reading a book about Diego Maradona, thinking, what a life. Wouldn't it be amazing one day to make a film about him? That's back in the late 90s. And the project kind of went away and it came back eventually, and it just felt right after Senna and after Amy and two brilliant people who tragically died young. I thought if I was going to do a third film, it has to be different, and the idea of what happens when you get old, dealing with some of the mistakes you've made in your life or dealing with just the issues. And Maradona's story keeps going. There's no ending. He just keeps creating chaos wherever he goes. And I guess the question is, how did it happen and why?
The whole message of your documentary is that it's a story of duality, and it's one that we all experience because it's who we are versus the story of who we are. And we all have that.
Particularly if you get it multiplied by fame and glory and, love. Yeah, in this case, particularly kind of attention from Napoli and Naples and the people of that city and Argentina. So it's having someone who's trying to just deal with life and a gift of playing football, but then multiplied by just everyone wanted a piece of him. And how do you stay sane when that happens to you?
And it's funny, isn't it? Because his coach, when he was at Napoli, he said, I met Diego and I met Maradona, and everybody loves Diego and nobody really likes Maradona. But Maradona himself says, without Maradona, nothing exists.
I'd still be in the ghetto. I mean, He'd still be in a shanty town. I think that's the thing. It's the ego and that kind of persona that he creates. He needs both sides to be successful.
We're not in space here. We're close because we're on the 17th floor. You, of course, are about to go into space. Bring us up to date with what's going on with that project.
Well, it's going really well. We've had 2 successful flights into space early on in the year. We're now moving the whole operation to New Mexico, where we'll do a couple more test flights. And then I hope to go up, and then we've got quite a long list of people who'd love to go up.
Is it seriously commercial? Is it a headline-grabbing thing? Is it something you've always wanted to do since you were a little boy? A mixture of all those things?
Exactly. I've always wanted to go to space, but I also believe that there are millions of people who are watching this show or listening to this show who would also like to go to space. So if we can get enough demand, enough spaceships, we can then bring the price down.
Are you aware of the schedule that precedes you before you go somewhere?
What have you got?
Well, no, forget Trump. This is the state visit. It's so official. What precedes? Look, this is our itinerary for you.
Oh,
would you like to know what you're doing next? Because it's on that piece of paper.
Oh my God. Okay, well, you're going to keep me busy. I should never have jumped on that Concorde to come and persuade you to come and sign this in the first place.
No, you don't mean that. Do you mean that?
No, I don't mean
that. Naughty knight of the realm.
So this wonderful young guy called Sam Doyle, who was a soldier fighting in Afghanistan, came back with PTSD. It's an all too familiar story, and just couldn't cope with life. And he did try and commit suicide 3 times. And then one morning he said, Kate, I woke up and I thought, I'm just going to put a rucksack on and I'm going to walk. But he said, I'm not quite sure why I did this, but I said to a friend of mine, can you drop me on Blackpool Beach? He said, I was only about 2 miles away and I was intending to walk around the whole coast of Britain, but I wanted to lift to the beach to start. So he set off with this enormous rucksack that was almost as big as himself. And he thought, if I keep the sea on my left-hand side...
That's the best bit. I love that line in the book.
I won't get lost.
Keep the sea on my left, I'll be all right.
I'll be all right. By the 3rd month, he was taking detours and going, I'm just going to climb that hill because I've just realised how beautiful the world is.
Yeah, and you do become addicted to it.
You become addicted to it. But for him, as a way of coping with the huge mental trauma that he had been through, it just helped him find an identity again. And the lovely thing, which has happened since I wrote the book, because we've stayed in touch, is that while he was walking, he met a dog called Jess, who I also met. Then he met a girl with a dog.
Oh, here we go.
They now have a baby and he has settled in Scotland. Life has started again for him.
Okay, top 3 tips. Off you go.
So firstly would be regularity. Go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, no matter whether it's the weekday or the weekend. Regularity is king because it will anchor your sleep and improve the quantity and the quality of that sleep. The second is probably darkness. We are a dark deprived society in this modern era, and we need darkness at night to release a hormone called melatonin, which helps time your healthy onset of sleep. So try to avoid your laptops and your screens about an hour before bed. And then the final thing is alcohol. It's probably the most misunderstood sleep aid, as it were. It is anything but. Alcohol is a sedative, and people mistake sedation for sleep when they drink in the evening. So avoid the nightcap, because alcohol will also fragment your sleep. You will wake up many more times throughout the night. Those would be the top tips: regularity, darkness, and avoid the nightcap.
Last year, I was watching the marathon on TV, and obviously it's always really inspiring. And I was like, flippantly like, oh, maybe I should do it. And she was like, really? Because I get your place. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, it's real.
It's the best way, isn't it?
So then, so me and two of my mates signed up, and I ignored it all year. And then come like Christmas time,
That's all
obviously
right.
conversation was like, so marathon?
Did you download the training plan, the 17-week training plan?
I did indeed, yeah.
Which starts on January the 2nd.
I know.
Is that something to look
It's
forward
such
to?
a slap in the face, isn't
Yay!
it? It's nice that it's the 2nd, though. They give you a day to recover.
So have you got the bug?
Whatever the opposite of the bug is what I have. Oh, joy, when you call me, I was giving up, oh, I was giving in. Joy, set my mind free. I was giving up, oh, I was giving in. How'd you always know when I'm down? How'd you always know when I'm down?
So we all know that we're doing huge damage with single-use plastic. So this show, me and Hugh go out there to just look at what can be done with plastic. So Hugh is talking to big business and going to government level and looking at trying to implement change from the top. And I've worked with a street in East Bristol, this brilliant street that represents any street in Britain, really, to see whether we, ordinary folk, can get rid of single-use plastic from our lives. How can we do it? So we go into people's homes and we count how much plastic they've got in there. We've got a river of plastic that you'll see, and just look at realistic ways of getting rid of it, which is, I think, most people's question now.
If we were sent out for coffee now, what would you go for?
Decaf soya cappuccino.
Now, we've talked about decaf before. You know, it's not uncaffeinated, it's just decaffeinated. So it still has caffeine in it.
I checked that. Some of them have up to 10% of the caffeine, but some of them are pretty much uncaffeinated.
Well, why don't they call them uncaffeinated then?
Because it's not.
Because they're not allowed to, because it's against law, because it's not true. What's your coffee order?
Americano with hot milk, please.
Okay, all right. Sounds like you're making it up. Is that true?
No, that's what I have.
Americano with hot milk, please.
Yeah.
A bit of doubt at the end of it? No. Okay. All right, I believe it. Dan?
Charlie's a coffee expert. He used to be a barista.
Oh, there we go.
We actually,
Under the bus you go.
When he joined our band, we had to
There's
drag
a
him out
barista
of the
in
world
there.
of baristering.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh, his forehead
Well,
is currently on
okay.
the microphone. In
Everybody-
apparent shame. Why
Okay.
are you embarrassed?
Forget the original question. Over to you.
Yeah.
This is utterly terrifying. I have to admit, like, I'm a big fan, Vassos, but like your order would have been met with a
No, it is.
deep sigh.
It is.
I've got a Danny Jones song to
I know,
play.
what's that about,
I've
mate?
had many
It's mad.
songs involving you to play on the radio before, but I've never had just Danny Jones and
I know,
Muddy Waters
I know,
to play
it's
next.
mad. Do you know how this come about? It's crazy. I don't really like what solo carries. Like, it's like when you're in a band, you're like, oh, you've gone solo and you've quit the band and
Yeah.
all that. This came about really organically. I'll just go and write some songs for other people like I did, getting a cut with the 1D boys and stuff. I was like, this is great fun. I'll go and do that. Started writing these songs. I was like, whoa, some subjects here that I've not dealt with, like in my life. And having a son, I was like, I need to kind of deal with this and get it off my chest. And when I started writing this EP, I was going through my own therapy. When I wrote these songs, like, these are too personal to me and I just need to get them out. And there's no point, like nowadays, it's so great to just be able to release and instead of it sitting on a shelf and going stale, I was like, let's get it out and
Good
just
for
for
you.
the fans, yeah.
Mike from Chelsea. Danny Jones' new single started off great
Oh no.
and then stayed great all the way through.
My heart rate's gone up.
Joe, the last time you came in here, you were hot-footing it up north to do a YouTube thing with a guy who'd built a travelator. Do you remember?
Oh,
That you had
yeah,
to climb-
so,
what was that about?
The guy's name's Colin Furze. He's a bit of a wacky inventor, and he creates like crazy, mobility scooters that do 100 miles an hour, or like he'd make, like. What's the guy, in X-Men when he's thinking about Wolverine claws and stuff. Anyway, so he turned his stairs into an escalator, a travelator.
Yeah.
And it was almost vertical. It's the most impossible thing, but it was really fun. I went up there and he showed me how he did it and built the video and stuff. And then he made me run up and down it. And it went so fast. And you can imagine a normal residential house, how steep it is. So I got up to the top like once, but no, it was just him doing a wacky invention. It got loads of views. It
love
got picked
people
up
like
by
this.
the press. But he makes so many mad things. He's got a guitar that's a flamethrower. I got on that. He's got a guitar like a Gibson Les Paul which fires out flames. So things like, he's just mad, but he's got like 10 million subscribers. He's massive. The biggest thing I've just done is I've just been on this tour of UK. Have you heard about this tour I did with the schools?
Tell me.
So I did a UK hit tour, a schools tour, visiting 17 schools in 5 days.
Right.
Because I was going to make a TV show, but they didn't have the funding. So I said, right, I'm doing it anyway. So I completely self-funded it. We went to 17 schools in 5 days. We trained with like 14,000 kids. And I ran into the school, did a workout, interviewed a few teachers, jumped in the car. We had a Mini. We drove all the way from Scotland to the south coast. 4 blokes in a Mini with camera kit, like all on our laps. It was a bit of a, we didn't plan that very well, but you know, that's kind of my way.
You just did it. You just did it.
Yeah,
yes.
we did it, and it was incredible, and I loved it. And then we just went actually to Ireland and Northern Ireland. We just done the same thing like last week. So it was amazing. It's the most powerful thing that I'm doing that has the most impact on kids and getting them thinking about exercise. So that is my mission now, is to get kids active.
Well, you are awesome, mate. No doubt about that.
The Chris Evans Breakfast Show with Sky.